It's the rules of engagement. And as I come in this morning, it occurred to me that it's like the old days in Chicago, we get the Irish Mafia well represented here on both sides of the aisle. At any rate, we've got the two candidates for the House seat. You knew as the Carney seat before and the Jim Hughes seat before that. I'm going to introduce the candidates very briefly. They will, by name only actually, they'll get 3 minutes to make a presentation to state their case. Conclusion to that, I'll ask some questions, may be brief, but I expect the answers to be a little more detailed. I'll ask each of them some questions, and then we'll open up the floor for general comments. By consensus, our first speaker today will be Mike Duffy. Mike, you can wander if you want. You can stand here if you want. It's up to you.
Good morning. Last time I was here, I was a visiting Rotarian. I'm part of the Dublin Worthington PM Rotary. And I'd like to recognize my father-in-law, Jim Weaver. Jim's over there. So my wife is originally a Dublin Kaufman grad, public school teacher. So good morning, everyone. As we chat a bit today, I want you to keep the following in mind. Since January 2011, Ohio has become the best state in the Midwest for immigration. And we are fourth in the nation behind only 3 states, Texas, New York, and California. Think about that for a second. We're not talking about the nation as a whole performing very well right now. Michigan's unemployment rate is still 9.2%. Ohio's rate is 2% lower, 7.2%. By comparison, since the beginning of this year, the national rate has stayed in a narrow range between 8.1 and 8.3%. That still leaves Ohio roughly a full percentage point below the national average. Folks, Ohio is outperforming both the national average, we're outperforming our surrounding states in the Midwest, and the only states that are doing better than us have much larger populations. Our job efforts are working. Consider this. In 2011, our Republican legislature that currently exists, of which I'm one member, passed a budget that eliminated an $8 billion deficit without raising taxes. Not only that, but we continued the 4% phased reduction in Ohio's income tax that started under Governor Taft and which Governor Strickland generally supported until he froze it in 2009. And we eliminated the estate tax, or the death tax as some people call it. Probably the #1 reason besides the weather that Ohioans moved to Florida, taking their philanthropic donations, their sales tax, their income tax away from their families here in Ohio. Did you know that a middle-class family of 4 in Ohio, making $55,000 a year for the entire family, will pay almost 26% less, or roughly $389 less, in Ohio income taxes in 2011 than in 2004? Now double that for those of us in this room with 2 wage earners each making $55,000 a year. That's over $778 in savings. Pretty impressive. For all the talk about the middle class that we hear today in politics, I want to leave you with this thought. Isn't it really all about jobs? Jobs for middle class folks and the revenue that they generate for our state, our communities, and our schools. And if we can increase jobs by over 122,000 statewide, as we've done since January 2011, and those jobs generate $55,000 per year, as I talked about, well, that generates $135 million for the state of Ohio. And that money supports our schools, our cities, our state services, and it does all of that without raising taxes. And isn't that the point? A rising tide lifts all boats. So what I believe I offer you is a combination of experience, 5 years on city council, not a career, got paid $50 a meeting. If you broke it down on an hourly basis, it was probably about $15 an hour. 2 years in the legislature. I'm a freshman, I'm finishing my first term. Effectiveness, my first bill, House Bill 1, Jobs Ohio, passed in about 2 months. And just yesterday we announced that after what was originally projected to be a 14-year delay in construction, the I-270-23 interchange is going to start construction next year, $70 million project. I had to spend a lot of time on these projects. I had to spend a lot of time on these bills. I've passed 4 bills out of the Ohio House. All of them have passed with the majority of the Democratic caucus voting for them chamber or the other. This is not an easy feat to be done. I've joint sponsored bills with Representative Carney, who's the current sponsor, state representative for this area, Representative Stinziano, Representative Celeste. We've done redistricting reform. We've done all of these things. And I wish I could talk to you about it, but I don't have the time right now. As I said, my wife is a Dublin, born and raised in Dublin, a public school teacher. My mother was a public school teacher. I went to public schools, support public schools. We live in Worthington. We have 2 kids, Jack and Annie, and I look forward to hearing more of your questions.
Donna, for the first time in 20 years, I made a mistake and I forgot to time him. So you can have what time you want as long as it's reasonable in my estimation. Donna O'Connor.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Donna O'Connor. I'm a special education teacher at Dublin Coffin High School. I love the kids I teach, and I never dreamed I'd leave the job I love for politics. I was born and raised in Hudson, Ohio. I'm the second child of 4, raised by my parents, Jerry and Bee. And like Mike said, the Irish Mafia is strong. My father's name is Jeremiah Patrick O'Connor. My father worked his entire career at Ford, just like his grandfather, and my brother is following in their footsteps. After high school, I attended Bowling Green, and I earned my degree in education. Proudly to be the first O'Connor in my generation and my parents' generation to graduate from college. I made the decision to relocate to Columbus. And I made the decision and I chose to live and work in a community that was much like where I grew up in Hudson. I chose to live and work in a community that makes an investment in excellent public schools. And I chose to live in a community that values hard work and economic opportunities. And I chose a community where neighbors care about neighbors. It was an easy choice, and just like you, I chose Dublin. I started teaching at what was then the only high school in Dublin, Dublin High School. It was there where I met my better half, Roger Rabel, who is also a lifelong Dublin resident, and he is also a teacher at Scioto High School. He teaches AP Bio and IB Bio. We have 2 beautiful sons, Colin, who is entering Dublin schools just this year as a first grader at Indian Run, and we have an ornery 3-year-old named Reed. Roger and I feel blessed that our children will get the opportunity to grow up in Dublin in a safe community that has great schools and will offer them many choices as they grow. But we're also worried. As educators and Ohioans, we face many challenges. So people ask me all the time, why a teacher running for office? I'm running because we need someone to protect and improve public education. We need someone who approaches challenges as a community leader and as a pragmatic, problem-solving citizen who will work to put the people of their district first and not partisan politics. We need someone who will fight for a school funding formula in this state that is constitutional, fair, and stable. A formula that doesn't put a more burden on you, the local taxpayer, and property owners. And a formula that most importantly doesn't change every time our elected leadership in this state changes. The financial health of our state is only as strong as our local communities, our local economies, and our schools. We need to create an environment for good-paying jobs of the future, and the state won't get there by walking away from its responsibility to educate that next generation of workers, innovators, and creators. If we lose out on that opportunity, we will lose out on our competitive advantage in this global economy. As I started this process of running for state rep, a good friend of mine said this: the ability of a teacher to organize and convey information using a variety of methods to large groups of sometimes uncooperative and sometimes rowdy individuals are exactly the skills we seem to need at the State House. A teacher is an expert at learning, not knowing. But I do know 3 things: education, innovation, and infrastructure. Those are things that are important to everybody in this room. I will ask you, who's better to make sure we continue to invest in our future, invest in our kids, and invest in our communities than someone who's been doing that her entire career, a teacher? Thank you.